Have you ever had one of those days, or maybe even weeks, where you were incredibly busy, but at the end of it all, you couldn't point to any real progress? Well, that feeling, it's often not a personal failing. It's a systemic one. And in this explainer, we're going to deconstruct the system that creates this very common illusion of motion. It all starts with a puzzle, a kind of broken expectation that we all have. We tend to assume that effort, that motion, should lead somewhere. So why is being busy not the same as actually making progress? The assumption that all that activity should automatically translate into meaningful results, well, it turns out that's often wrong. To understand why, let's start with the basics. On paper, any organized system, whether it's a small team or a huge institution, exists for a specific reason, to achieve some kind of goal. But here's the twist. Over time, a system's function can drift away from that original purpose. It can start to prioritize just motion. The act of doing things becomes more important than actually achieving anything. So to really get how this illusion of motion happens, we need to look under the hood and examine the machinery that produces it. We can think of any organization as a kind of abstract model. Let's call it the performance system. This model is really useful because it applies to any system that's been designed to accomplish a goal, no matter what it does. Now, this system has just three core parts. First, you have the goal. That's the why, the reason the system exists. Second, you have actions. These are the things people within the system do to try and reach that goal. And third, you have measurement. This is how the system is supposed to know if its actions are actually working. And it's right there at the point of measurement where the system's logic can start to break down. See, to function, a system has to measure something. But the choice of what it measures is a critical decision that completely changes its behavior. A system can measure two fundamentally different things. And this distinction, well, it's the key to understanding this entire mechanism. On one side, we have what are called outputs. You can think of these as what we do, the direct products of our activity. And on the other side, we have outcomes. These represent what difference it all makes, the actual impact the system has on its goal. So to be precise, outputs are the immediate, tangible results of an activity. They're the things you create, the services you deliver. And the most important feature of outputs, they are incredibly easy to quantify. You can count them, you can see them. Think about the number of units produced, or the number of calls answered, or reports written. Simple. Outcomes, on the other hand, are the meaningful, long-term changes the system was actually designed to achieve. They represent real progress toward that original goal. But here's the fundamental challenge. Outcomes are often abstract. They're delayed. It's hard to trace them back to any single action. How do you easily count something like increased customer satisfaction or improved public health? You really can't. This difficulty in measuring what truly matters creates a really powerful incentive that leads directly to something called the activity trap. It's a feedback loop that doesn't happen by mistake. It emerges from the system's own rational behavior. Think about it. When a system is faced with a choice between a simple, clear metric and a difficult, fuzzy one, it will almost always gravitate toward what's easy to measure. It will choose to measure outputs. And that choice creates the trap, a self-reinforcing loop. First, the system takes an action. Second, that action creates a tangible output. Third, because that output is so easy to count, the system measures it. And fourth, that measurement rewards the action, which creates a powerful incentive to do it again. The system slowly redesigns itself to just produce more and more outputs, whether they have any real effect or not. When this feedback loop runs over and over again, a strange paradox starts to emerge. The system can look incredibly successful on the surface, even while it's making zero actual progress. What happens over time is that this relentless focus on producing measurable activity causes the system to completely lose sight of its original purpose. The link between what's being done, the outputs, and what truly needs to be achieved, the outcomes, is severed. This table shows you exactly what that disconnect looks like. For instance, a system might measure an output like the number of new features shipped, but the intended outcome was actually higher customer retention. Or maybe it counts the number of calls processed, when the real goal was improved customer satisfaction. In every case, the easy-to-measure output becomes a stand-in for the real goal, and eventually, it becomes the goal itself. So if you're looking from inside the system, performance looks great. The charts that track all those outputs are going up and to the right. According to its own chosen metrics, the system is an absolute success. But from the outside, the organization is failing its mission. Now, this isn't because anyone has bad intentions, and it's not because people are incompetent. It's an emergent property of a system that has simply optimized itself around activity instead of impact. This whole dynamic, it reveals a fundamental principle about how complex systems work, and it has very little to do with their stated goals or their mission statements. In the end, it comes down to this. Systems do not do what we want them to do. They do what we measure. A system will always, inevitably, optimize itself for the metrics it's given. That means the choice of what to measure isn't just a small reporting detail. It is the single most critical decision that defines what that system will ultimately become.